All right, if I may, I would like to call to order the joint meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners and the Committee of Infrastructure. The meeting is being held here in the Aldermanic Chamber at City Hall, and today is March 13th, 2024, with a start time of 6 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
I will call the roll tonight. Mr.
You'll
Chair,
call the
can I-
roll?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you. Commissioner Stahl, as I understand, has been unavoidably detained, and he sends his regrets. He may join us a little bit later this evening. Commissioner Creole is in the same situation, as I understand it.
Commissioner Tolmer is, and I'm not aware of Commissioner Craylow.
Okay, so Commissioner Craylow may join us in a little bit, and we will stand by. With that being said, I will call the roll of Chairman O'Brien,
Present.
Alderman Dowd,
Present.
Alderman Sullivan,
Here.
Alderman Thibodeau,
Here.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
With 5 members present, Mr. Chairman, we have quorum.
All right, I'll declare the quorum. And
Michael,
let's start right in.
you can't hear. You gotta let him know.
Your phone.
Yeah,
There you go.
I welcome my police friends here. Director Cummings and myself, we built several projects already, a couple projects.
Yes, sir.
And so this is another one in the chain here. And the way these basic meetings go is the joint committee works together and come out. We'll hold meetings at least, maybe as determined, but at least once a month. And upon need be, there may be some construction meetings that I think Mr. Cummings and I will go through. And also, it may be asked for additional funding or the rights to funding, and we'll get into that in a few minutes to explain. But sometimes the price of nails goes up, so why stop the project, so. Anyways, we'll deal with that. And that's all I have for the opening remarks. Director Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I believe we have a couple new members of the Infrastructure Committee with us this evening, and so just to set the table a little bit, also for the record, because we are in a new legislative session. This project technically started at the last legislative session, and there was a joint committee meeting where we started the process, and that was really a conceptual meeting and the starting of the design. And so here tonight, we're going to be giving you a progress report and start to tell you a little bit about where we are relative to design, and then talk about the trajectory that we're on for this future construction project. I do want to note for the record that we have with us Tom Bolton from the Police Department, Karen Smith from the Police Department, and for the record, Tim Cummings, Administrative Services. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we do have public comment, but I am not seeing anyone in the audience.
And this Director Cummings being the first meeting, we have no minutes to approve, correct?
Yes, we do.
Well, nope, we do, Mr. Chairman, actually. We have minutes from the December 11th, 2023 meeting that's in your packet.
Okay.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Can I entertain a motion to approve?
I did.
Motion by Alderman Dowd to approve the previous meetings, minutes. Okay, next, item number 4, general process update. At this particular time, I'm going to facilitate the meeting to Director Cummings
Thank you.
and allow him with give us an update. Yes,
Yes, there's some
Alderman
people here
Dowd.
that aren't used to our meetings, and when you speak, please name and address so the transcriptionist can know who you are.
Thank you, Mr.
very
Chairman.
good, Alderman Dowd, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Alderman Dowd. One of the unique things about our process here is we hire an OPM. OPM stands for Owner's Project Manager. Owner's Project Managers are typically third-party consultants who are vested with a few responsibilities. The two biggest ones is making sure they manage all the contracts on a total project. They keep an eye on schedule, and they keep an eye on the budget, and they provide technical review services relative to design, inspection, whatever the case may be as you proceed through a project. And in this case, at the previous meeting, we procured the services of GPI and Tim Lemire. And Tim Lemire is here this evening for the first time, and he is our owner's project manager that's going to help us facilitate this project. And he is here in particular to give us a status update on the design, which for those of you who may not be aware, we entered into a contract originally with LaValle Bresinger to do a facility assessment of 9 Riverside. We did that. It led to a conversation about starting to redesign 9 Riverside, and that's all relative to the usage of the building for the police department as a training and education facility, and ensuring we make the appropriate changes so accreditation and functionality can be achieved. The two guiding principles that we set out as we move forward through the project is efficiency, cost, and the functionality of the building. And so we have a progress report from Tim Lemire relative to the design that LaValle Bresinger presents to us. And LaValle Bresinger is representing that they're at 100% design. That's not entirely accurate. They are pretty far, because this is such a small project, because this is not an extensive new building project, but a rehabilitation of an existing structure. They are pretty far through the process, but we still have some level of design. I would say we're probably 75-ish% of the way through. We need to continue having conversations as the scope continues to get solidified. So I'll leave my comments there, Mr. Chairman, and if I could, I'd like to hand it off to Tim Lemire.
Please do. Mr. Lemire.
Great, thanks everyone, and appreciate inviting me here to go through the status update for 9 Riverside and the Nashua PD. Okay, got the angle right here.
First up, Mr. Lemire,
Yes.
if I may, before you get started, to interrupt you, if one of the committee members has a question, do you mind pausing your presentation
by all
and answer the
means,
question?
just-
Or you're going to take questions after your presentation?
No, I'm in favor of any time something comes up, just, let me know. We'll stop.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Yep. As Tim mentioned, I'm just here to give a progress update on where we are today and some things we're currently working through and some things that are coming up in the near future. So, as Tim mentioned, the architect did give us 100% design drawings, but the reality is it is more similar to 75%. And as you can see, there's a couple trades like site civil, building and perimeter security, and electrical that we have some comments ready to go back to the architect on adjustments here or there, some mostly minimal, but a couple things that need some further attention. Yep.
And one question, the security cameras that are gonna be required, which are, I think, being worked by police IT,
Yep.
is those locations and things incorporated in the drawings yet?
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, we went through that, I think it was last Wednesday with police IT, and I can jump ahead to this now, but we are working with a third-party vendor that will work in concurrence with the construction contract down the road that knows more about the police-specific needs for door and camera security. Some upcoming items that we're thinking about is the 9 Riverside building is a little bit unique because it's shared with the NTS right now at 11 Riverside. It's one building. And we're just exploring some options about splitting the water metering up. Right now, it's a shared bill between the Nashville Police and transit system. We're looking into possibly how much a backup generator would cost, and we're also looking into an energy efficiency study of the building to understand a potential benefit to any HVAC upgrades. We're not too sure about that yet. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Right now, it's tough to see. You probably see better on the handout, but this is the floor plan layout, and I'm just trying to illustrate here where we're at, and all these boxes with really small type in them is just describing what we're doing for door and perimeter securities, and even internal to the building. The firearms training unit portion of the police department has some specific room security needs that we need to accommodate. So that's, as you can see, we're not doing a full gutting of the building and refitting, but we're actually just, it's more about providing some security needs. And if anyone is remembering that building, the DPW had that conference room sticking out of the front, and that had a lot of windows and actually had a doorway coming out of that conference room, and that's all the type of stuff that for a police facility we need to secure and change. We can't have any, what'd you call them, Tom? Weak points in the perimeter?
That's where this one went.
Yeah. Outside of the building, and this little zoom in part is actually the area behind 9 Riverside and between the current police station, but the garage on the far right of the screen is new, and that's gonna house 2 specialized police vehicles, the mobile command unit and the crime scene investigation truck. And we need to do a little bit of site civil work to physically get those large specialized vehicles back there. Right now, there's really no home for those 2 trucks, and the current grading of the pavement out there wouldn't allow to physically get those trucks back there. So we're gonna make this little slip lane to get those 2 trucks behind the current 9 Riverside building. Getting back to the interior security, Pro Technologies, that's the third-party vendor out of Hooksett, New Hampshire, that is a little bit more specialized for municipal police department security needs. We're working with them for the access control of all the doors for the interior FTU offices, but also the exterior openings of the structure. As I mentioned, we need to go through all the windows. The side door that's currently adjacent to the old DPW parking lot, that has a large window panel next to the door that can't stay in a police building. So a few upgrades like that, just to get the interior building secured the way any police facility needs to be. On the exterior, this is a little bit tough to see, but on the top left is the current employee parking area for the police. That fence around it on the exterior is fairly dilapidated, and it is very exposed to the public, not on just Riverside, but on Roche Drive. So that perimeter fence is gonna be replaced with a privacy screen fence, so that the personal vehicles of the police and them coming to work and leaving work, they have a little bit of visual protection. There's gonna be, you can just kind of hardly see in the middle of the page, there's an L shape of X's, and that's existing fence that's gonna go away as the police take over the former DPW parking lot, and that fence is gonna go all the way out to Riverside with a new gate, a manual gate on Riverside. And the same goes for some fencing behind the current police station. You can see the current police station, a shed just to the right of it, and same thing, there's some dilapidated fence there that's gonna get replaced and tied into, behind the current 9 Riverside.
Question,
Yep.
please? So essentially, this is, it's two separate buildings now, but I see a lot of lines running
Yeah.
through it. Really, the intention is that this is gonna be one larger campus where people will be able to go back and forth between the buildings?
Correct. Once we do that, the police will have free movement between where currently, as you point out, it's a good way of saying it, because currently, the police have to go through a man gate in the fence to get into the one building, or now, the only people that really have access into 9 Riverside would be the SWAT team, right?
Correct.
So anyone going in for training would have to actually exit through a man gate into the old DPW parking lot and then go into the building that way. So it's fairly inefficient at the moment
Yeah.
for the police to access their own building
Okay,
unless it's the SWAT team.
okay. One
Yep.
follow-up. In the front of 9 Riverside now, is that gonna be gated?
Right there, yes.
Yeah,
Yep, that's where the new gate's going, yep.
okay, all right.
And to be more explicit about that, it's gonna be a manual gate. It won't be electronic. The curb cut will remain open, but the intention is not to, necessarily use it as a main entrance. Most of the traffic, I believe, will funnel through
Okay,
this area here. As you
Okay.
can see, there's a new connection being made.
yeah.
But to further hit home a point that was made a second ago. So yes, I would say it is fair to conceive of this area as I'm outlining as a campus. And this is the trajectory we're on. But I want to make sure folks still know that right around here, around this imaginary line that I'm kind of drawing, over is still transit. And all off the page right here still would be transit.
Okay.
And they would still be present there, and that's the current plan that we're working under.
Got it.
On the fence design, since this project is not going to include the redo of the parking lot tar, well, I guess two questions. One, is there anything that you're paving as part of this, but the major parking lot is a separate project? Because
Yeah,
it's pretty well involved, and
Yeah.
and you want to ensure that the fence doesn't need to be moved when you have to do that work.
Yeah, last Wednesday, when we met with the architect and their team, some of our comments going back to them are pulling some of those fence repairs back to avoid that situation you're talking about, because we have been discussing that and making sure that we do the project twice.
So again, to further the comment made by Mr. Lemire, we are designing it in a way to ensure that we're being as efficient as possible, so we do not need to do it again. So we're keeping it in the back of our mind that this parking lot will be potentially redeveloped and reconstructed in the future. How distant in the future, I think, is still an open question that needs to be determined, and I will leave that to the police commissioners and to the Board of Aldermen to decide. It has been relayed to me that this parking lot is in pretty catastrophic and pretty critical piece of infrastructure that does need to be repaired. One of the ideas, and this is still subject to further study, is to try to get the design work done now while we are looking at this and procuring a civil engineer to start designing the project, but by no means constructing it. You wouldn't be able to do the construction now anyway. Logistically, you'd need to do this project first and then come in at the end, or whatever the case may be on that front, because of a construction methodology perspective. You couldn't do both projects at the same time, but we are still needing to work through a lot of those details.
As we've been explaining in some of these other divisions, doing the plans up front, so it's ready to go, are critically important. I think they've already have an idea of somebody to do a study of the parking lot, to do the potential design, so that when the money's available, they can immediately start, because there's like no drainage in that entire parking lot.
And if I could note for the record, I believe Commissioner Stahl joined us
Dahl.
at 6:22.
Dahl.
Dahl.
Dahl, excuse me, Dahl.
Close enough.
Okay, all right, we're gonna continue a little bit. Just a few, specific items that we're in the process of, as we're getting towards the end of the design, is the new garage, because of the vehicles that are being stored in there, they need, permanent electrical hookups for some of the, equipment and make them, operationally ready at any moment. So we do need to bring electrical out to that new garage, and, one of the things we're showing is we're likely gonna trench behind the back of the parking lot and get our electrical hookups in there for both, the command truck and the crime scene truck.
So I'm assuming the new vehicle that's being built, not the
Yeah.
existing one, okay.
The, right,
That's correct.
we're designing around the new one that's coming, correct? Yeah. So things that are upcoming, probably the most important thing that's starting to happen right about now and within the next week and a half to 2 weeks is, we are, I'll say, looking to engage with Martini Northern, a construction manager, to estimate out the cost of what we're looking at, so, and what's going to happen there is, we're gonna see what the expected cost of the project is, and see how that drives where we're going from there, and I'll explain that more in just a minute, because the next slide has a couple things that are upcoming that,
I have a question for
Yeah.
Mr. Director Cummings. AAI contract and a guaranteed maximum price?
Eventually, yes, Alderman Dowd, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Yes, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. That is correct, Alderman Dowd. Eventually, we would be looking to do an AIA contract for construction manager services with a GMP, a guaranteed maximum price. However, what you're gonna see in your packet is a different contract for Martini Northern, because this would be pre-construction services, where we're just looking for professional services from them for cost estimation, but I'll get there in a minute.
All right.
as I mentioned earlier, yeah, one item that could come up is it convenient time, is this a convenient time to split the water service between NTS and Nashua PD? That's something that comes up. Nashua PD uses the building for training, so it's a fairly unequal distribution of cost between the water bills, so if we can split it, and that's financially feasible, this is a good time to do it. Right now, the building's set up for a mobile gas generator, and one of the things we're exploring is a permanent generator, possibly off the national gas grid, which is on Riverside. But again, like the previous slide, until we have some idea of project costs, we're trying to sort out funding. And one of the larger things is the energy efficiency study. When the architect performed the assessment of the building maybe a year ago, Tim, they gave us three HVAC options, but they were not tasked with really looking at the building. They were actually looking at the current equipment and the life cycle analysis of the HVAC equipment out there. So in meetings with community development, it was really determined that we need to understand the efficiency level of the building to understand if any of those HVAC options are worth the cost. So we're also exploring how efficient or inefficient the actual existing police half of the building is. We're looking into the roof, and can the roof handle solar panels in the future, or can the roof handle an added layer of insulation? We don't quite know the answers to that yet, And I think until that point, we've been hesitant to have the architect go forward with any HVAC design because we don't know if there's a benefit.
Just a couple of questions.
Yeah, Alderman Dowd.
If you do the new roof, it only makes sense to do it for the whole building. So the question would be, is the transportation part of the city gonna cover the half of the cost? And the other thing is, I'd be surprised if that roof can handle the solar panels, although they are getting lighter. I have a lot of experience with solar panels on roofs lately. So, and if you do solar panels on the roof, you'd wanna do a public-private partnership like we did with the schools.
That's correct, if I may, Mr. Chairman? If I may. Thank you. Again, Tim Cummings, Administrative Services. So Alderman Dowd, to answer a couple of your questions, at this time, I would not anticipate transit being able to assist with this project. I don't think it's in their current plans. I do think it would be a wise course of action and probably the most efficient to look at it as the entire building. So I assume when and if we got a cost, it would encompass the entire roof for the building and not just partial. But we will cross that bridge when we get there. I think there's also some additional conversations that need to be had with this group and others as to truly what are we trying to achieve with our environmental and energy efficiency and how we're trying to be better stewards of our environment moving forward. We are in a little bit of a quandary. It's a catch-22 of sorts, and we're still trying to work our way through it, and I suspect we'll be coming back to you once we have some more details after we complete some additional study. But we are essentially trying to assess whether we should be putting insulation into the building. Now, I'm not talking about the roof right now, but insulation into the building, either interior or exterior. And in our project, as originally conceived, didn't necessarily anticipate us doing that. And so, there may be a large cost to do that. One that the original project, as scoped out or conceived, didn't necessarily anticipate us doing. And so we're gonna need to have a conversation as to truly what and when folks wanna do in terms of trying to be good environmental stewards. There may be other ways to achieve some environmental stewardship, like improving the drainage on the parking lot. Wouldn't necessarily be an energy type of efficiency, but it would definitely be a water type of efficiency, and I know our environment could use that as well. I see a question from Alderman Sullivan.
Yes,
Alderman
thank you.
Sullivan.
Thank you. Director Cummings, you mentioned, and this might be a rhetorical question, but you mentioned goals around energy efficiency. Is that because there are no stated goals in that it's kind of broad and that we're just trying to be good stewards as opposed to zero carbon footprint? So really there's no specific outline on that.
I think that's fair to say. We have had a lot of conversations with the community development department to try to actually tease out exactly what you're asking for, or what you're suggesting. And we're slowly getting there. As I'm learning, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I keep going to them, to the sustainability group, and saying, what is the preferred HVAC system that you'd like? And of course, I get the response back, well, every building is different. We can't necessarily tell you that. And then to their point, they were saying, don't spend the money on doing an HVAC system if you're really going to have all of your heat go out through the walls of the roof. It's not the best course of action. And so as you're starting to study this and you're asking the question, okay, we won't necessarily make this HVAC upgrade as originally suggested by Alderman Jetty at the last meeting, and it's why we went down this course. We're starting to see that, well, maybe we need to be better stewards, do an insulation project, but we were never looking to refacade the building, lay a layer of concrete, to put insulation between the outside of the building to the new exterior that we would have to build, or we were never planning in the originally conceived scope of project to rip out drywalls to be able to come into it from the interior. Both of those suggested solutions are gonna have a huge cost associated to it. And I'm not sure I'm prepared to make a recommendation, as much as I wanna be an environmental steward, as best I can be, to you all, because I'm not sure that that's the best use of taxpayers' money, when maybe there are other ways we can achieve the same type of environmental goals. So we need to kind of study it a little bit more, have further discussion, but that's where we're at. And I don't know if Tim Lemire has anything else you'd want to add on.
No, I would agree with you that the scope would be quite invasive, because as you noted, we currently have no plans to do major renovations to the interior of the building, so it would be something, it would really change the project to be something completely different than what we started this process with. And then going to the exterior has a lot of oddities to just effectively build an outside of a building on an outside of a building. Is going to require some sort of curbing or light foundations around the outside. The windows would likely need to be retrofitted with some sills that drain. So it really becomes something different than what we started to do.
Could I ask a follow-up, please?
Follow-up.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Lemire, on this energy efficient study, and I'm just saying hypothetically, do you start at a base where it says, okay, current building is, for lack of a better term or whatever, we'll give it a letter grade. Let's say it's a D, maybe a D plus. And then after you get in there and you look at different options, do you say we're going to improve this and we're going to bring that letter grade from a D plus up to an A minus? And maybe that's an option as far as improving the energy efficiency. I mean, how do you measure that, and what do you do to say, okay, this is a good plan of action, this is what's going to help us?
What we have we say generally scoped by the architect's team for a study would be thermal loss and air movement, pressure loss, and I don't feel we can get that letter grade until we know what kind of leakage we have or don't have. So I think that's what the study intends to do for us, is to tell us, hey, right now you're operating at a C minus, and you can do these couple things and get to, this will get you to a B plus, this will get you to an A minus, and this is a C. So I think the study is to accomplish that, because right now we just don't, it's like being in a house and you can say it's drafty, but we gotta find out where.
Sure.
Director Cummings? Yeah. I don't know what the energy efficiency of the windows is right now, but if you don't have good energy efficiency in the windows, don't waste your money on the walls, because all that heat's gonna go out through the windows.
And so this is how we get to project scope creep.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm reconciling, because I'm trying to keep this project at around a $3.5-ish million project, because that's what we've originally outlined as our intention. But as Tim Lemire has outlined, we could embark on this study, and that study is going to be between $50,000 and $60,000. That's kind of where we're at for that study. And that study is just going to tell us that we need to do a major construction project in addition to the major construction project that we're currently doing. And so that's why I think at some point we're gonna come back before you, and we're going to be laying it out to ask you if you really want us to proceed in this direction, or are there other ways you envision us trying to achieve our environmental stewardship goals? And that direction hasn't been given to us yet, but we're gonna be seeking it, but we can't really have that conversation until we have a little bit more data.
Director Cummings? Is the occupancy of the building gonna be 8 to 5 every day, or is it going to be used? There'll be periods of time when it's not being used, because you might invest in more automated thermostats to keep the building cooler until it's being used. Because if you do a complete HVAC project, that's almost a separate project, and it'd be expensive.
Tom Bolton, Captain National Police. Unlike the existing National Police Station, it will be used more sporadically. Typical use is projected to be Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, thereabouts. Occasionally some off hours, but for the most part, it's a training facility. Most trainings take place Monday, Friday, day hours, with very little after-hours use.
So smart thermostats,
Follow up also.
yeah. I was just saying, smart thermostats is a far less expensive way to go than replacing windows, walls, and if you do the roof, you do the proper installation on the roof, but that's, again,
Further questions by the board? Mr. Lemire, does that conclude
Okay.
your presentation?
No, one more slide, and then
Absolutely.
just about done. Other upcoming items, this is a little bit easier, a little bit more rational, but currently there's one IT closet in the building. It's on the police side. It's for the entire building. Our goal here is to separate that out so the NTS and City of Nashua IT can get moved over to the NTS side. The police IT infrastructure stays in that closet. This is, part of this is a security thing, so whenever Nick needs to go into the NTS side, he doesn't need a police escort and access to do it. And that especially as Captain Bolton said, it's not occupied as full-time like the police station is, so there's not always someone there. So this kind of splits that out and gives Nick access to what he needs whenever he needs it. Police have their access to their IT stuff. And Tim talked a little bit more about, a few minutes ago, about the parking lot and some of the issues we're looking at. We don't know if we're gonna do anything about it as part of this project or design it in this project or not, but some of the issues we're looking at is the police traffic flow, some of the gates and security measures in the perimeter that are not part of this project, and lighting needs, and probably the biggest long-term concern is the condition of the drainage and pavement. So that's all I have for the current update, so any questions are welcome.
Everybody satisfied? Any additional questions?
I do.
Yes, Alderman.
So I know the discussion of funding is gonna come later, but the discussion's been brought to, like, is this gonna be just city-funded project, is it gonna be federal funds, is it gonna be
Yep.
grant funds, any of those things?
But right now, it's 100% anticipated to be city funds.
Okay.
Yep, it'll be a city-funded general obligation bond at this time. Again, for the record, Tim Cummings, Administrative Services.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, move on to other items on the agenda. Mr. Lemire?
No, Mr. Chairman, if I just may, I just want to wrap it
Yes,
up
you
by talking about the next couple steps. So, as Mr. Lemire outlined, we got some design work that's still necessary. What I anticipate happening is, ideally, you'll be approving a contract tonight from Martini Northern, so we can actually have them start costing this project. I'd like them to do that in tandem with the comments that have come in relative to design, so we can put a package together and ship it over to LaValle Bresinger, who will take those comments into consideration, because I assume some value engineering will need to occur, and once we get that cost estimate back in. So the idea would be is to bring a subgroup together now, once we have that data. At the previous meeting, we talked about that being Chairman O'Brien, Alderman Dowd, Commissioner Tollner, to come together, vet out some of the value engineering that gets done once we have those cost estimates, talk about some of the additional design work that may be necessary based off of the feedback that we got from the internal department session that we had, bring it to a point where we can feel comfortable with the cost and the design, and look for funding for the construction of the project. So that's what I anticipate happening over the next 6-8 weeks. Mr. Chairman, I see Alderman Dowd has a question.
Yes, Alderman Dow.
Yeah, just for the new members, explain that the contract we're approving tonight and how it's being funded, and it's not part of the bond, so that they don't get confused with.
Excellent point, Alderman Dowd, thank you. Yes, so tonight, what you see before you is a contract for professional services for Martini Northern, and that contract is paid for by the Building Trust Fund. It's not coming off of the bond. There is no bond for this project as of yet, but we are going to be using the city's building trust fund to continue along with this work. It's for, I'm asking for not to exceed $25,000. You'll see a quote of $23,200 for the contract. And to Alderman Dowd's question earlier, I had pulled it up, and it looks like at the conclusion of this contract, and if we were to proceed with construction, we would move on to an AIA 133 guaranteed maximum price contract with Martini Northern. That's all spelled out in your packet here this evening. For those of you who may be wondering, this body, unlike our finance committee, is actually vested with the responsibility of not only approving all contracts, but approving all bills to be paid. So that's one of the reasons why we need to meet monthly. We are exercising a provision within our procurement rules where I had gone out, and technically this is a professional services, so I'm exempt from needing to go out to the market, but I do believe it's a best course of action. So I did solicit the market for not only OPM services, but construction management services for the parking garages most recently. That is how Martini Northern submitted a proposal to us. The business terms are actually better than what they were. I believe on the parking garage, they came in with 3.5%. You'll see this contract says that they'll do it for 3%. So we're doing a little bit better there. But Martini Northern has been with us and has done work here in the city. They're competent, qualified construction manager. They did the public health building a couple of years back. And so anyway, so I wanted to provide that background for the group.
Okay, thank you.
I think Alderman Sullivan.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Director Cummings, since it's my first meeting, and I understand the cast of characters, Mr. Lemire is I'm gonna forget the acronym, but the OPM, and then we have Martini. Do they select the general contractor? Do they select, is it up to them to do it?
We would be, so they will be, I guess I should back up, and again, for the record,
Go ahead, back up.
Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services, they will be acting as the construction manager with a GMP type contract. Their intention is not to self-perform. So then what they will do is they will go out and solicit bids, a minimum of 3. They typically try to shoot for 5. And they will try to ensure that they get good coverage on a various trade that would do the type of work. They will then present that to us. We have to sign off on that, but that is the dollar amount that would actually go into the GMP.
Okay, all right.
Follow up?
No, I don't think so. I think you answered my
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving along.
Alderman O'Brien?
Yeah, Alderman Dow.
It's very, very similar to what we do on the joint special, when we approve the contracts for the subs.
Right, but I jumped in kind of late on that. We're pretty much at the beginning, so I just wanted to understand a little bit more
Yep.
about all the different side companies and
Yep.
and what their role is essentially.
So that's a great point, if I may, Mr.
you
Chairman. So there's gonna be a consulting team that gets formed here. We've already brought on some of the consultants. We started first with the design team, which next time moving forward, I would actually recommend that we start with the OPM first. But for whatever reason, we started with the design team, and that's, I think, because we went from a facility assessment straight into design. And that's fine, that's neither here nor there. But that's a LaValle Bresinger. Then we have an OPM. Our OPM is GPI. I anticipate we will have the construction manager, which would be Martini Northern, if you guys so approve that contract this evening to start down that path. I believe we're gonna have some third-party inspection contractors that we will need to have for this project as well. I believe we will probably need to bring in some hazardous material surveying as well. And so as the months go on, you're gonna see more contracts put before you as we actually really start to move towards construction. And that's one of the reasons why I believe an OPM will help us, because unlike the construction manager who's managing a lot of construction contracts under a CM approach, the OPM is gonna be concerned with not just that one contract, but all the other contracts as well, to help us keep an eye on the total project cost, because we will put a lot of the cost into the GMP, but for various reasons, we can't put everything into a GMP. Our building inspector will counsel us very strongly that our third-party inspections need to be a separate contract directly with the owner and not with this construction manager. So along the way, we will have those types of issues that will arise, and we will put a team together to kind of work through these various issues.
Okay, we're good? All right,
Now, I'd like to
Yes,
ask a question. if I
Commissioner.
can. So this is Nick Dahl, Police Commission. So when we get to the point where we're gonna go forward with construction, who's responsible for soliciting the bids?
So I want to clarify, the construction itself, that would be the construction manager.
And they will solicit at least 3,
Correct.
and that'll be all transparent?
Yes.
So, but I get concerned when we're already putting a dollar figure on it.
We're not putting a dollar figure on it. What do you mean? I guess I should
Well,
clarify.
I hear 3.5 million already.
So when we started conceptualizing the project, we had to kind of get an understanding as to what it would be to bracket it, but we really don't know what the project's gonna be until we complete the design and get it costed. And that's why I anticipate, once we get it costed, there will be a value engineering exercise that does occur. Because as much as I hope we don't go beyond that total project cost, you know, we're not really gonna know.
I'd
until
like
we
to go
actually-
under it,
Right.
but,
Exactly,
yeah.
so.
So, and as long as I have the floor, I guess, this environmental study, I mean, is that a done deal, we're doing that? Does it even make sense in this building? Do we think that this building is realistically something that we're gonna make a lot of energy efficiency in? I mean, if we're gonna spend 50 or 60,000 to find out that it's gonna cost an extra $1 million?
So don't hold me to the numbers that I'm about to tell you, because this is really the conversation I wanted to have next month,
Okay,
okay? Or the month after, but sometime in the next couple months. We'll be spending $50,000 to $60,000 for me to come before you and tell you that we're probably gonna need to, you know, have a $4.5 to $5.5 million project.
right. I mean, to me, that's not
And-
realistic, but
and-
we'll get there in a month or two.
Yeah, and you need to make, and, because it's not for me to judge, you know, the environmental stewardship goals that the city has.
Yeah.
It's been made very clear to me, and if Alderman Jettie was sitting here, he
Right.
would be telling you, we need to not forget about the environmental stewardship
I remember back
responsibility we
in
have.
December or whatever, he was saying it, but
So,
if we don't think it makes sense, like you said, maybe we worry about drainage in the parking lot and things like that that are in our control.
I think our community development department, our sustainability group, is gonna work with us to develop some practical and some business-oriented type of, you know, guidance that says, you know, this is what I'm hoping to do. Over the next few months, we will have a conversation and say, you know, here's what we know we need to do that will help improve the environment, that we are already knowing we need to improve this area, and see if that satisfies some of their concerns. Putting in electrical charging stations for future electrical vehicles, because we know that that's the trajectory we're on. You know, ensuring that we do not put mechanical systems that eat up the roof space, so we can put solar on. So planning maybe for some of these environmental stewardship things may also satisfy some of these concerns, which I think would be the most efficient approach.
All right, thank you.
All set?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so that I understand this, we are going to do this similar to what we did at the JSSBC, and that is that the general contractor brings us the options of subcontractors with their recommendation, their reasoning, and then we choose. And sometimes there is only one that ends up qualifying in the end, so, but that will always come every single time, correct? That's- And I just wanted to add on to what Commissioner Dahl said.
I'm not part of the JBC.
JSSBC.
JSBC, so I don't know what you do, but the process you just outlined is exactly what we did with the DPW building. It's exactly what we did with the Performing Arts Center. It's
Yeah.
exactly what we did with the Public Health
Right.
building. I anticipate we will do the exact same thing
Right,
here as
exactly.
well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Alderman Dow.
yeah, just to explain a few things, like typically in the school projects, we have to have the bond money approved up front so we can hire a general construction manager to do the pricing of, well, you also need the bond to hire an architect to do the design. In this case, the architect does the design, the construction manager in school projects does the pricing, and so you have a guaranteed maximum price. If the bond is passed first and it doesn't match the guaranteed maximum price, then you have to do the value engineering and put things as might be able to be done later if we have money. In this case, it's a separate contract to do the pricing. So we'll have the pricing up front, so we'll know what we have to bond. And as we go through the contractors, the construction manager will go out to vendors, and we've had as many as 8 sometimes. Sometimes you only have a couple. It depends on what we're asking to bid and how busy they are. And the city mandates that we take the most qualified, the best qualified, or the qualified lowest bidder. And that's what we do. If somebody bids and they don't comply with everything we ask them to comply, then they're out. They have to do the work that was asked of them and give us a price. And then if there are 4 or 5 of them, the low bidder. And we get these big spreadsheets at the joint special. We see what everybody bid on everything and which one was the lowest bid. And the construction manager recommends the person.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Dow. Now we're gonna try to move on again, but, Mr. Lemire, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving to the next item in the agenda is the approval of invoices.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So what you have before you in your packet are 2 invoices. One is, and both I recommend to you for approval this evening. One is for OPM services for $2,336.48. I saw that on the script. They're written to be approved together. I'm not sure if that's the pleasure of the group or not, but I did note that, and I should say the outline that is provided to me, not the script. And then if that is the pleasure of the group, then I would suggest that you also approve the architect, the LaValle Bresinger's invoice for $18,652 this evening.
Okay, without objection of the board, do you want to combine the both items together? Alderman Dow.
I'll make a motion to approve invoices to GPI in the amount of $336.48 and LBA in the amount of $18,652.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, item number 6 on the agenda, approval of new contracts. Before us is Martini Northern, and it's not to exceed $25,000. Discussion? Mr.
Yes.
Cummings?
Yes, thank you. I've sort of explained this contract as we went through this evening, but essentially this is not the construction contract. This is professional services to help us with the cost estimating. This is to help us during what's called pre-construction for this project. It's the city's standard professional services contract. You'll see the scope of work is attached. It's for just over $23,000. I ask that you approve this evening so we can move this along and get some cost estimating done, so I can have a better conversation with you next month regarding agenda item number 7, because there's really not much to report at this time.
Very good. Alderman Clay, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I motion to approve a new contract with Martini Northern in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Discussion on the motion, Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify on the construction contract that we're looking at, there's a grid there of estimate schedule of values example. So I'm not to use that grid because that doesn't total up to 23,200. This is just an example of what we would get.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's absolutely, because I haven't gone through that exercise, if I may, Mr. Chairman. And,
Yes, you may.
so, what they're showing you is the type of deliverable they're gonna provide us. And I anticipate a schedule of values conversation, as well as a selection of the proposed bidder when we get that information. That will be one of the first couple steps that comes along when we actually enter the construction phase of the project. There will be a night where I anticipate we would go through in detail the various trades and groups, proposals, hear their recommendation, and that will be all predicated of schedule of values that gets developed in advance.
Okay.
Okay, motion on the floor is by Alderman Clegg to approve not to exceed 25,000 to Martini Northern. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to item number 7. Director Cummings, you
Yeah.
want to handle general financial overview?
Yes, so at this time, Mr. Chairman, I don't really have anything new to report, other than what I had previously outlined at the December meeting. We're trying to keep this project on a trajectory of about $3.5 million until I'm advised otherwise. We need to get our arms wrapped around the total construction costs, which I'm grateful that you just approved the Martini Northern contract, because that'll go a long way in helping us. We need to continue having a conversation of the scope that we want to have for this total project and what we anticipate doing. So having a further conversation on what our environmental expectations may be, having an understanding of the level of work we're gonna do relative to the parking lot. Those conversations, I believe, will happen over the next few weeks, or over the next couple months, which will help me be able to make a report to you relative to the total project budget at follow-on meetings.
Director Cummings?
Alderman Dowd.
Just a question, so the contract we just approved to do the pricing, we're not gonna turn them on to do the pricing until we have the final design drawings, right?
Correct.
Otherwise, it'd be a waste of money.
Yes, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, we all set there? Okay, next on the agenda, is old or miscellaneous business items. There is nothing since this is the first meeting. So we're gonna look into adjournment, but before we do that, our next meeting, I think Director Cummings says we're gonna try to meet at least once a month. As with the other projects, working with Director Cummings, I do find maybe he can try to facilitate what would be the best date. Work with you, Captain Bolton, so you can get your gaggle together, you know, and I'll try to get mine, you know. And hopefully, you know, luck would have it, we would have more people.
And so, Mr. Chairman, the trajectory we're on, and if we continue with the same cadence, I would anticipate an April 10th meeting, which would be, if there was a night, a second night necessary for infrastructure would follow on. We try to keep these meetings to about an hour and a half. They happen typically right before infrastructure committee. So if it's the pleasure of the group, we would be looking at April 10th. Now that, I'm suggesting that because I believe, and this is, you know, subject to conversation, there's an overnight parking discussion that will be occurring over the next few months during the regularly scheduled infrastructure committee meeting, which happens on Wednesday nights, the fourth Wednesday at 5:30. So I would think we may want to look at the April 10th meeting.
April 10th, we're not having an infrastructure, we're having Pennachuck, a special water committee. I've got that scheduled
At 7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock.
So if we were to do this, we would do this at 6 o'clock. And I
As long as
ask,
you're
I
done.
guess that's the question is do we want to do 6 o'clock on April 10th? That's the trajectory we're on.
How do the police commissioners feel? 6 o'clock?
You know, I can't speak for Commissioner Tolner, I'm here tonight because he couldn't make it, but.
You tell him he doesn't have to eat, he just show up.
One of us will make it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if I may so, that's a good time to say it. It's gonna take some flexibility until we get kind of into a routine here. But we'll quickly get a routine established. So, you know, allow us to get the feet wet first, and we'll do it that way. So we're gonna shoot at 1800 hours, or 6 PM for the novices,
On April 10th.
April 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Alderman Dowd.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn is always in order. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:03. And I especially thank you all for attending. I know Commissioner Shaw.